Hello everybody. Uh, in the last class videos, we were discussing points from the second unit, that is electrostatics and electrodynamics. In that, in the very previous video, we have been discussing some laws related to electrostatics and electrodynamics. In that, we have discussed three basic fundamental laws, that is, we have discussed Faraday's laws, Lenz's laws, and Fleming's left and right rule has been discussed in the previous video. And in today's video, we'll be discussing the other laws which relate to this chapter and which come under the category of electrostatics and electrodynamics. That is, we'll discuss the two laws, that is Fleming's right hand rule and the Laplace law, will be discussed in this video. And also an animated view of these two laws will also be shown in this particular video. Before moving on to the today's session, we'll just brush out what we have discussed in the previous video, that is electrostatic law, as all these laws are one way or other related to each other. So in order to have a clear understanding of today's session, we'll discuss in brief about the last video. That is, in the last video we have discussed Faraday's law. This Faraday's law is nothing but the law which deals with electromagnetic induction. So Faraday's law states that when any current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, an EMF will be induced in the in the closed conductor, and that EMF will be equal to minus n d pi by dt. Here the EMF induced will be equal to the number of turns of the conductor that we have placed in the magnetic field and the rate of change of magnetic flux with respect to the rate of change of time. So this Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction is nothing but the basic law of electromagnetism, which is predicting how a magnetic field will interact with an electric circuit to produce EMF, electromotive force. So the expression for Faraday's law is given as the amount of EMF induced E will be equal to minus of n d pi by dt. So these points we have discussed, like and coming to the applications of Faraday's law. Faraday's laws are used in power transformers, electric generators, induction cookers, electromagnetic flow meters, and in orchestra, like we'll be using in electric guitar and electric violin, etc. We'll be using Faraday's law. And later on we have discussed what is meant by Lenz's law. So Lenz's law is nothing but is a law which demonstrates the reason for the negative sign in the Faraday's laws of induction. The Faraday's laws of induction is given as E is equal to minus n d pi by dt. The negative sign in this expression is demonstrated by the Lenz's law. In other words, Lenz's law explains why the EMF generated according to Faraday's law is negative. We have already discussed that Lenz's law obeys two fundamental laws, that is Newton's third law of motion, that is for every action there is equal and opposite reaction, and also conservation of energy, that is energy can be neither created nor destroyed, and therefore the sum of all the energies in the system is a constant. So coming to the statement of Lenz's law, it states that the direction of the current induced in a conductor by changing a magnetic field is such that the magnetic field created by the induced current opposes the initial changing magnetic field which produced it. So Lenz's law is given by an expression E is equal to minus d pi by dt into B, where B is nothing but the magnetic flux density. So this law in detail we have discussed in the previous video, and from that we have concluded why negative sign has been used for Faraday's law. And Lenz's law's applications are nothing but we can by knowing the Lenz's law we can understand the concept of stored magnetic energy in an inductor. Lenz's law is mainly applicable for electric generators. Lenz's law is also used for magnetic braking and also induction cooktops. And later we have discussed about Fleming's left-hand rule. So Fleming's left-hand rule is also known as Fleming's left-hand rule for motors. So in this law or rule, based upon the placement of the fingers of our left hand, the direction of the field of magnetic field and current and force of the magnetic field can be identified or calculated when we know two parameters, and the third parameter can be identified. For that Fleming's left hand rule has been explained in the previous video. And coming to the applications of Fleming's left hand rule, electric motor is one of the main application of Fleming's right hand rule. So these are the points which we have discussed in the previous video related to electrostatics. And in today's video we'll discuss the continuity of the previous video, that is Fleming's right hand rule and Laplace law will be discussed in this video, right? So we'll move on with the first learning objective, that is Fleming's right hand rule. We already know that John discovered both the rules and named them after himself. These rules are known as Fleming's left hand rule and Fleming's right hand rule. The left and right hand thumb rules were founded by John Ambrose Fleming in late 19th century. So it states that whenever a current carrying conductor comes in a magnetic field, there will be a force acting on the conductor. The direction of this force can be found out by using Fleming's left hand rule. So Fleming's left hand rule is also known as Fleming's left hand rule for motors. Very similar to this, there is another rule. That rule is nothing but Fleming's right hand rule. So there is a slight variation from left and right hand rule. So we'll see what is Fleming's right hand rule. So if a conductor is forcefully, here the point is at forcefulness. If the conductor is forcefully brought under the magnetic field, there will be an induced current in that conductor. The direction of this force can be found out by using Fleming's right hand rule. So the difference is that if the conductor is forcefully brought, the force can be calculated, the direction of force of the magnetic field and the current in the conductor can be found out by using a law called as, or rule called as, Fleming's right hand rule. According to Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, we know that whenever a current carrying conductor moves in a magnetic field, there will be current induced in it, right? If the conductor gets forcefully moved inside the magnetic field, there will be a relationship between the direction of the applied force, magnetic field and current. This relationship among these three directions is determined by the rule called as Fleming's right hand rule. So for this we need to stretch out our right hand and place our thumb index and middle finger such that they are 90 degrees or right angles to each other. Okay, so hold the right hand of your first finger, second finger, that is first finger I mean index, second finger is nothing but the middle finger, and thumb at right angle to each other. The forefinger will represent the direction of line of force. So in the diagram we can observe that the direction of force, the line of force is represented by the forefinger. Thumb points to the direction of motion or applied force. The second finger or the middle finger points in the direction of the induced current. So the direction of current is indicated by the middle finger. The direction of field is indicated by the forefinger, and the direction of current is indicated by the direction of force is indicated by the thumb. So these 3 points can be analyzed by using this law. So if we know any of these 2 parameters out of the 3 parameters, if we know any of the 3 parameters, we can easily find out the other one. Okay. The thumb is pointed in the direction of motion of the conductor relative to the magnetic field. The first finger is pointed out in the direction of the magnetic field, either it may be north or south. The second finger represents the direction of the induced or generated current within the conductor, that is from the terminal with lower electric potential to the terminal with the higher electric potential, as in the voltage source. Okay, so in this figure we can easily remember the value. Like in this slide you can see that some of the letters have been bold. Like in thumb, M is in bold letter, that is thumb is representing motion. For easy remembrance, thumb indicating motion. So M, you remember the letter M, so that it gives you that it is indicating motion. And the first finger, you remember it with F. F is indicating field, either first finger or forefinger. You remember the letter F, so that it is pointing the direction of magnetic field. The second finger, that is nothing but the middle finger, you remember the letter C. So it shows the direction of the induced or generated current. So thumb is indicating the motion, forefinger is indicating the magnetic field, and the third one, that is middle finger, is indicating, or the second finger is indicating the direction of the induced current. So this is how we can simply remember, so that we can easily recollect these 3 terms while writing in the exam. Okay, and coming to the point, like how we can coming to the applications of Fleming's right hand rule. Fleming's right hand rule is applicable in electrical generators. So below I am going to talk about the electric generators. Electric generator is a machine that converts one form of energy into another form, is referred to as electrical generator. Especially it converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. So that is why this rule can also be called as Fleming's right hand rule of electric generator, whereas left hand rule is otherwise called as Fleming's left hand rule of motors is called. This one, right hand rule, is used for generators, left hand is used for motors. Okay, I'll try to play a video. This one is not getting played, so we'll discuss this point in the at the last. Okay, so we'll move on with the next slides. Okay, so coming to the next law of today's video, that is nothing but Laplace law or Biot-Savart's law. So we'll see what this law is all about. The law, which is stated in the year 1820 by Jean-Baptiste Biot and Felix Savart, the direction of the magnetic field follows the right-hand rule for the straight line. Biot-Savart's law is also called as Laplace law or Ampere's law. Sometimes this particular law is being used by other two names, like it is also called as Laplace law and it is also called as Ampere's law. But there are other laws relating to Laplace law fundamentals. So when mentioned specifically as Biot-Savart's law, this law is related to electrostatics. Okay, Biot-Savart's law is used to determine the magnetic field intensity H near a current carrying conductor, or it gives the relation between magnetic field intensity H that is generated by its source current element. That is, I repeat, Biot-Savart's law is used to determine the magnetic field intensity. So we have discussed what is meant by magnetic field intensity. Magnetic field intensity is defined as the number of magnetic lines of force that are coming from a particular point. It is called as magnetic field intensity. This point we have already discussed in the previous slides. Okay, so this law is used to determine how much of H, that is magnetic field intensity, is being generated from a current carrying conductor, or it gives a relationship between magnetic field intensity generated by a source current element. So consider a wire carrying an electric current. So current is indicated by letter I. So let's take a wire which is carrying electric current, and the amount of current is indicated by letter I. And also consider an infinitely small length of wire dl at a distance x from a point A. In this diagram, there is a point A here, and there is a line, or else there is a current carrying wire here. So the current carrying wire has a length of L, and the current that is flowing in it is I, and there is a point at a distance of x from the point A. From point A to the length of point A to the current carrying conductor is nothing but L. The current that is flowing in this wire is nothing but I. Biot-Savart's law states that the magnetic field intensity, or else the rate of change of magnetic intensity dH at a point A due to current I flowing through a small element dl. So flowing through the small element dl is directly proportional to the length. So it is proportional to L, and as well as it is proportional to the directly proportional to the current I, and as well as it is proportional to the length of the element, that is dl, and it is also directly proportional to the sine of the angle theta between the direction of current and the line joining the element dl from the point A. So, and the fourth point is, and it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance x of a point A from the element dl. So Biot-Savart's law is giving us 4 points on which magnetic intensity at a point is getting generated. So it is directly proportional. The magnetic flux density is being generated from any current carrying conductor is dependent on 4 points. That is, first one is it is directly proportional to the current. Second point is it is directly proportional to the length, dl, directly proportional to the length of that element, and it is directly proportional to the, here there is an angle theta between the current and the line joining dl from point A. So based upon this angle, the h value will be dependent, and also it is dependent on the value inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the point x to point A from this terminal dl to the point A. It is inversely proportional to the distance between these 2 points A and dl. So based upon these 4 values, the h value is dependent. So from this, what we can write is that dh is equal to mu naught mu r by 4 pi into I dl sin theta x square, where here in this expression we can see that there are some constant values. Like you can easily observe that the constant values are, first we can say 4 pi is a constant value. This everybody can identify easily. And the second one is mu naught mu r. So mu naught mu r are nothing but, we already know that mu naught is nothing but absolute permeability of air or vacuum. In general, mu naught value will be equal to 4 into 10 power minus 7 Webers per ampere meter. This point everybody will be knowing. And mu r is nothing but the relative permeability of the medium. So mu naught is a constant, mu r is a constant. Mu naught is absolute permeability is constant, it has a fixed value. Mu r is also a relative permeability, it is also a constant value. And 4 pi is nothing but it is a constant value. So we can substitute these terms with a single letter k. So we can write it as dh is equal to k into I, that is nothing but current, dl is nothing but the length of the element, sin theta divided by x square. So if we can simply write it as dh is equal to k into I into dl into sin theta whole divided by x square. If you want to remove the value k, or else if you want to remove the term k, we can write it as dh is proportional to I into dl into sin theta by x square, where k is a constant and depends on the magnetic properties of the medium. So k can be given as mu naught by mu r by 4 pi. Okay, so this is how Biot-Savart's law represent the value of H, magnetic field intensity. And the points which we have to keep it in mind regarding Biot-Savart's law is that Biot-Savart's law is very much similar to Coulomb's law in electrostatics. So we know that what is meant by Coulomb's law. Coulomb's law is nothing but we already know that the Coulomb's law states that the magnitude of electrostatic force of attraction or repulsion between 2 point charges is directly proportional to product of the magnitude of charges and inversely proportional to the square of distance between them. So that is nothing but Coulomb's law gives us the relationship between the force of attraction or repulsion between the point charges and the distance between them, and it is given by an expression. This also we know, F is equal to K into Q1 q2 by r square. This point we all know that, where q is q1 is a charge of 1 point charge, whereas q2 is another charge for other unit positive charge or negative charge, and r is nothing but the distance that is calculated between these 2 points. And where k is equal to Coulomb's constant, this also we have discussed, like its value will be equal to 8.987 into 10 power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. We have discussed this point, like F is equal to K into Q1 Q2 by R square, where F is force, K is nothing but the Coulomb's constant, Q1 Q2 are the signed magnitudes of the charges, R is the distance between the two charges. So Biot-Savart's law is very much similar to the Coulomb's law in electrostatics. So this law is applicable for very small conductors which carry current. Okay, so the advantage of the Biot-Savart's law is in this point, that is, even for the very small current carrying conductors, Biot-Savart's law can be applicable. Okay, so from that also we can find out the values of H. This law is applicable for symmetrical current distribution. For symmetrical current distribution also this law is applicable. And coming to the applications of Biot-Savart's law, we can use Biot-Savart's law to calculate magnetic responses even at the atomic or molecular level. So the main flavor of the Biot-Savart's law is that even at the atomic level or molecular levels also we can calculate, or we can use this particular law to calculate the magnetic field intensity or magnetic responses can be calculated even at the atomic or molecular level. This Biot-Savart's law is used in aerodynamic theories to calculate the velocities induced by vortex lines. So even in the aerodynamics theory, this Biot-Savart's law can be easily applied, and the magnetic flux intensity H can be calculated. Okay, so these are the applications for Biot-Savart's law. And I would like to play a video relating to this, both Biot-Savart's law and Fleming's right hand rule. Let's see what is the animated view, or what a simplified explanation of Biot-Savart's law and Fleming's right hand rule. So let's see what is there in that video.
Biot-Savart law. Biot and Savart conducted many experiments to determine the factors on which the magnetic field due to current in a conductor depends. The result of the experiments are summarized as Biot-Savart law. Let us consider a conductor XY carrying a current I. AB is equal to DL is a small element of the conductor. P is a point at a distance R from the midpoint O of AB. According to Biot and Savart, the magnetic induction dB at P due to the element of length dl is directly proportional to the current I, directly proportional to the length of the element dl, directly proportional to the sine of angle between dl and the line joining element dl and the point P, that is sine theta, inversely proportional to the square of distance of the point from the element 1 by r square. Therefore, dB proportional to I dl sine theta by r square. dB is equal to k into I dl sine theta by r square. When k is the constant of proportionality, the constant k is equal to mu by 4 pi, where mu is the permeability of the medium. dB is equal to mu by 4 pi into I dl sine theta by r square. Mu is equal to mu r into mu naught, where mu r is the relative permeability of the medium and mu naught is the permeability of free space. Mu naught is equal to 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7 Henry per meter. For air, mu r is equal to 1. So, in air medium, dB is equal to mu naught by 4 pi into I into dl sine theta by r square. In vector form, vector dB is equal to mu naught by 4 pi into vector I dl cross r vector by r cube, or vector dB is equal to mu naught by 4 pi into vector I dl cross r cap by r square. The direction of dB is perpendicular to the plane containing the current element I dl and r, that is plane of the paper, and acts inwards. The unit of magnetic induction is Tesla or Weber m raised to minus 2.
Now let's see the animated view of Fleming's right-hand rule for clear understanding.
Where we have a magnetic field and a conductor placed in a magnetic field, the copper colored rod, and we are moving the rod upwards with a force, and out comes a current from its edge. So let's start at the beginning. We have a magnet, a north pole at the far end, and we have a south pole at the near end, nearer to us. And you can see a blue arrow traveling from the north pole to the south pole. The blue arrow indicates the direction of the magnetic field lines. And the Fleming's right-hand rule is shown in the image, where you can see a right hand and the 4 fingers pointing in the direction of the magnetic field. And the conductor that's moved upwards in the magnetic field is indicated by the thumb. So there is a force acting on the conductor. So with these two inputs, the forefinger and the thumb, the output is the middle finger, which is pointing in the direction of the induced current. So Fleming's right-hand rule is all about the 3 directions which form the X, Y, and Z axis. Let's look at the animation again. Initially, the copper-colored conductor is stationary. Where it's stationary, although it's placed in a magnetic field, nothing happens. There is no force, so there is no induced current. Now we will apply a force and move the conductor vertically upwards inside that magnetic field. As soon as we start moving the conductor, you can see the green arrow coming out of the edge of that conductor. That shows that there has been an induced current created inside the conductor. You stop the motion and the current stops too. So this is the principle of Fleming's right-hand rule. Once again, to recap, we have a conductor at the bottom level between those 2 magnets, and there is no induced current. And as soon as we create a force in the vertical axis on the conductor to cut those magnetic lines, you get the induced current of the conductor. So no force, no current. And for a generator, we have to keep rotating the rotor and keep the conductors cutting the magnetic lines in order to get a continuous current.
So with this, we got to know how current will be induced according to Fleming's right-hand rule in any magnetic field. So with this, we'll conclude this video. So from this video, we got to know what is